So before the conference, how many of you have heard about Telc? Okay, I was expecting that. So yeah, we are fairly small. We are local here to Bad Homburg. Our headquarters is right next to the Autobahn. So if you leave by car, you will probably drive by our headquarter building. And let me tell you a little bit about what we do. You might have thought that maybe we are like in telecommunications or something. That's not the case. We are actually developing and evaluating language tests. So Telc originally stood for the European Language Certificate. So that's where the name comes from. So no telecommunications involved yet, maybe, who knows. We are in the German language field actually a market leader. We focus mostly on the German language, but we in total have probably about every European language in our portfolio and a few others. And for each of those languages, we have tests on different CEFR levels. So CEFR is the Common European Framework of Languages. You may have heard about like a B1 certificate or something. Yeah, that's what we're doing. So we are developing tests for each of the levels. And then we also have specific tests for, say, immigration, or we have tests for physicians who want to work in the clinic, so they have like to have special knowledge about certain words in that space. In total, we have about like 50 formats that we offer. We do not administer the tests ourselves. So we develop the test, then we license the test to test centers. And you might have spotted maybe the name Berlitz there, which is one of the biggest language schools in the world. And I think if you have taken a German class at Berlitz and then got in a test later, it would have been probably a Telc test. We also work for some public entities like the German government, the Austrian government, or the adult education centers, which are also public-ish, and are also, actually, they are our owner. And also for the EU Office of, what is it, Personal Selection Office, EPSO, we call it. They also use our tests or have tasked us with developing tests. So when the test has been taken in a test center with our partners, it comes back to us and then we process the test, we evaluate the result and we certify the result. In total, that's currently about 50,000 individual tests taken per month. 5 years ago, it was maybe half of that or even a little bit less. And we expect it to be double that in probably 5 years. And now we come to our problem statement. For each of these tests, first we need different test versions, because if we administer 50,000 tests or even like a couple thousand tests of a certain format, and it's all in the same version, people will know what will be in the test. So we need new versions all the time. So for that, we hire or we contract test authors that help us with coming up with a new version. So we have a very specific like format, like what is in the test, and then they will give us drafts that we form into a new version for the test. And after the test has been taken, every test or most of the tests have a speaking and a written performance in it. So the test taker has to actually speak the language with the person, and they have to write either an email, an essay, a letter, whatever. Depends on the format. And somebody has to rate this written performance as well and the speaking performance to tell us like how good was the performance and what should go in the certificate. Also for that, we have a lot of external raters. They're also mostly contractors. They're not employees by Telc. And there are only so many qualified foreign language teachers in Germany. And even with this current number of tests that we are taking, we have reached the capacity limit of people who we can contract to do that work. We basically have them all under contract, which are available. And we would basically like them to keep them under contract, but to do different work. So we need to find a solution how we can take this workload a little bit off them. So what I'm going to tell about like what we did will like replicate a lot of what already was said, but maybe this one was different for us. Like we didn't really need to look for a use case. When we started this project, the use case was there. The problem has been there for quite some time, and now with the advent of these Gen AI, LLM, ChatGPT, it was basically a match made in heaven for us. It was like, okay, now we finally can develop a solution for that. So a few challenges. We are really small compared to some of the companies who are represented here. 120 people in total, plus external contractors. 50% of that workforce is basically clerks who process paper-based tests. 80% of the tests are still taken on paper. I think there is only 1 or 2 test centers currently in Germany who are willing to take digital tests, because some of them don't even have any computers in there. It is a very different story in the rest of the world. So that number will change quite rapidly now, but that's the current situation. 80% is still on paper, 20% basically is digital. So half of our workforce is tasked just with processing the paper, just looking if it's complete, putting it on the scanner, all that kind of stuff. That means the rest of the workforce has to do all the other work. So we don't really have a lot of people who can really develop new things. That has not been our core business. Our core business is processing tests, developing tests. We have a very small IT department, and also our IT landscape is, to say it nicely, is very traditional. It's suited for the task that we had and that we have, but our task in the future will be different, so we have to deal with that. Yeah, so those were the challenges, and when we started this project, we brought people from basically every single department within the company who is even at some remote point likely to have some contact with this project or with this product that we are developing, and none of them is an executive in any form. So we have clerks from the processing department, we have IT developers. From the 3, we have 1. So we have test developers. We have people from accounting even, and that's our team. And we have about like 20% of our time for this project. The rest we do have to do our daily work. That includes me. I have 80% of my time is different stuff from this project. So in the beginning, we allowed ourselves to really dream and think like, okay, we have this new possibilities with the generative AI and with LLMs, and ChatGPT is amazing what it is capable of. So we allowed ourselves to dream in the beginning and really think like, what could the ideal world look like in 5 years? But then we also made this list and condensed it down to what is the first thing we need to do now. So that's the first part. Think big first, and then we started really small. Then we condensed it down to like the bare minimum, and build a prototype or contracted a company, a partner, an external partner to build us a prototype. And since we condensed it really, really down to like the very narrow case, like we just want a new version of a test or a draft of a new version of a test of one specific format for now, or we want to rate a specific writing exercise. We could build this prototype in, I think, like 3 to 4 weeks. So 3 weeks with the developer, with the external developer. 1 week we were thinking like, what do we need? So it worked really, really fast. I will talk about it a little bit more later. And then we tested it. Is what we thought should be possible, is it really possible? And luckily we found out, yes, it is very possible. And it is possible with very little effort compared to some of the technologies that are out there that we could think of that might be able to tackle or to get our solution. And then we set out, of course, to think like, okay, how can we make this a product that can actually produce something for us that can actually take work off. Because right now we have this prototype and some people are already working with it, but it is not scalable right now. So that's what we're doing right now. Define a requirements book. I will also talk about this a little bit later. And then once we have this running, then we can go back to this list of dreams that we have, and then we can make the product better and make it our dream product. For all this, we have like very limited timeline. We started end of last year, so we have through our project timeline that we set out to reach so far. And I think we're like 3 weeks behind our schedule, our initial schedule from end of last year, so still working very well. Maybe one of the reasons behind that is that the people who are in the project team, they have like their daily business where they should focus on a lot of time, but these 20% of the time, they really like to do that because it is something very different from their main work. So they're really committed to that. And they can also tell within their department about the project, and from what I see, they're about as passionate about the project as I am, as you can hopefully see right now. So about the prototype. The prototype for us has been the make or break for the whole thing. So as I said, we really narrowed down what we want. We want a new test version, or we want a draft of a new test version that adheres to our format specifications. That means it cannot have certain topics in it, but it should have other topics in it. It needs to have like the right text length. It needs to have the right amounts of test items, so basically the questions that you have to answer in a test, or the test instruction that tell you how to write a letter, to who to write a letter, stuff like that. And on the other hand, the other use case, basically put in a writing exercise that was written to one of 3 selected tasks, so only for those 3 tasks it works for now. Press a button and then you will get a rating that is adhering to our rating standards, and we put it really to the test. And for us, the reliability, the so-called intra-rater and inter-rater reliability is really important. And we compared it to our human raters. We found out that the intra-rater as well as the inter-rater, which means between the same person but also between different people, the reliability is already now much, much higher. It's just one measurement. Of course, we still have the quality, the general quality of the rating. And there we found out it is almost as good as the average rater we have right now. Because, as I said, we are using basically every person who is qualified for that to do that. That doesn't mean they are all the best raters. So our prototype is already almost as good as the average rater. So we expect our finished product to be better, at least than the average rater. As I said, it took very little time because we really focused on like these very narrow things. And then we made this requirements book that I talked about with our partner. They helped us a lot with that, where we put, again, like our core, what do we like absolutely need to make this a viable product at all, but also our, what we call expansion pack, to make it a really good marketable product. Marketable in this sense is still internal marketable. We do not plan to roll it out to any customers. We want to use it internally. And of course, we still have our list of dreams on the side. Where do we see this in 5 years? What could it maybe also do later? The title of the talk is Low-Tech AI. What do I mean with low-tech AI? So when we explored the possibilities that are there right now from the perspective of a company which is not a tech company, we're a language expert company. So we looked at the scale of possible solutions with AI, and looked at the trade-off between quality and cost. And as you might have guessed, it's not a perfect straight line, obviously. So there is the Pareto effect here. Oh, where do I have it here? Pareto effect is there, of course. And we found out that for us, the RAG, the retrieval augmented generation solution is our sweet spot. It is still very, very easy to do compared to training our own model. But already we have the quality that we want almost reached by now, and we can make it better with having a bigger context than we have now. So we have a database of basically a lot of written performances with their ratings. We have a database of all our existing test versions as context. And when we want to create a new version or want to rate a written performance, the, what is it, Azure Search, I think, or Azure AI Search, will look within this context database for the best possible context input, uses that within the prompt with the instruction to the LLM to get the outcome. So we do not need to fine-tune or train our own AI, luckily, because, of course, that would be much, much more expensive. The point for maybe you is, of course, for you, the solution, the perfect solution will be somewhere. It doesn't have to be in the same point where we are now, but it really makes sense to try find from the bottom like the solution which has the quality which is acceptable, and then you don't really have to go further at that moment. Maybe later, of course, but at that moment, you don't really have to go further because you can start doing stuff at that point. Talking about risks, of course, there are a lot of risks. I mean, everybody here knows that. I mean, we have a very select audience, of course. There are many risks involved with using AI, and we are aware of that. So, of course, we talk in depth to our lawyers, explain them what ideas we have, and ask them to give us like very honest, very brutal feedback, what kind of challenges legally we might face. And they gave us a lot. So they gave us a big, big list. They were honest. But as we see it, the bigger this list is, the fewer the chances there is something out there that we haven't considered yet. So I cannot tell you, of course, everything that is on that list for various reasons. Not least of all that I don't know that I don't have them all in my memory, but we know this list is long, and we are fairly certain that almost every single possible risk is already in there. We have rated those risks, like how likely is it that we will actually face it, and have started already on strategies for the ones which are most likely. And we, of course, keep an eye on it, how it will be in the future if things change, especially, of course, with the EU AI Act. So our application in that framework is already a high-risk application. So it is quite likely that we have to declare that we're using it. Right now, we are not legally obliged to it, but we design our product basically with a switch. So once it's legally mandated, we just flip the switch and it will be in the output. So also, of course, very important, and we have heard that before today and yesterday, keep the human in the loop. So what we are planning is not AI rating or AI test development. What we are doing is AI-assisted test development, AI-assisted rating. So for the foreseeable future, every single Telc certificate, I can promise that to you, will be rated by a human. But not by two, as it is right now. It is probably going to be one time the AI, so one rating by the AI, and then one human checking the AI. And we will learn a lot, of course, in that process, because we can feed this back to our AI, and we expect it to get better and better and better by that. Yeah, of course, also documentation, very important, but good thing AI helps with that a lot. So we found that out already. And also it's very good as in going through all the documentation that we already have created and finding the good stuff in there that we need later. So to sum it all up, it is late. You will probably want to go home. In the beginning, of course, we heard that before, get the stakeholders on board, get as much buy-in from everyone, and we did it by getting people from the ground, from everywhere, talking to them, letting them talk between them to get the buy-in. We are also very fortunate that we have from the managing side, they have our backs as well. They're not too hands-on, that's good, so they let us play a little bit. And also, it was said before, like, why start something that transformational when business is good? It's kind of similar for us. Business is quite good for us. It's growing. We don't even need to create demand. Demand is growing by itself. But that's the perfect time to start the transformation, because if it goes down, then it's too late. For us, it was, of course, crucial to have a development partner. We found that. I can tell the name. It's a Statworks, a local company here from Frankfurt, but it doesn't matter. I'm not chilling for them only, but find a good partner where you have chemistry. That's also very important. So we had, or we will have also in the next development phase, probably bi- or 3-weekly meetings, so you have to talk to them a lot, person to person, or on Teams, Slack, whatever. So if the chemistry is not there, it's not the right partner for you. There are solutions out there which are already capable of doing what you want to do. So we are LLM agnostic with our solution. We are using 4.0 right now with the prototype. So we don't need to change the model. The model is there. We just prompt it after we have found the perfect context for our prompt. Also very important is to distinguish between what is really necessary and what is just desirable. Both is nice. We want everything, but the priorities need to be clear. And about the risk, know your risks, learn your risks, embrace them. That doesn't, even if a risk is at this current point not solvable, even if we don't have a solution to certain risk, that doesn't mean we cannot do it, because it has not been materialized yet, and it's quite likely to materialize, so we can put it on the side, we know about it, and if it becomes more likely, then of course we have to tackle it. But right now, we don't have to be in fear about every single risk that is out there. Yeah, so that's basically my conclusion. Thank you again for your patience. We will see each other at the roundtables, I think, so there's no Q&A right now. But